There's an article that appeared in the New York Post yesterday, and it's with regard to cattle mutilations. And the headline reads, "Cults or UFOs? Decades of mysterious cattle mutilations stump police." Well, let me just say this to the police. I could solve this very simply for you. There's nothing you could do about it. It's extraterrestrials from outer space who are responsible. I think that's pretty clear now. And there's what are you going to do? I mean, maybe one case in 1,000 at this point might be some maniac or maniacs who would do something like this. But for the most part, there's nothing you can do because this is obviously being done by an advanced race of intelligent beings. Whether there are extraterrestrials. A lot of people actually. Before I go on here, I just want to make a point. A lot of people will say, "Well, we don't know if they're extraterrestrials. They could be ultra-terrestrial or whatever, interdimensional, all that kind of stuff." Well, I just want to use extraterrestrial as a placeholder until we know, because I think that's what it is for one thing. I think that's what the evidence points to, and that they are extraterrestrial. They're not coming from other dimensions. I believe that they're extraterrestrial. But that could be proven wrong at some point in the future. But for the purpose of this discussion, it's extraterrestrials. It's definitely not human beings. These beings, what the descriptions of them, these gray aliens, they're 3 to 4 feet tall. They have only 4 fingers on their hands, big heads, big black eyes. Insect-like, some people say. So that's who's responsible, and they're doing this, and they have the equipment, and there's nothing you could do about it. The equipment they have is beyond anything that we know of. So there's nothing you can do. But anyway, let's get into this article a little bit. It says, Fox News has obtained shocking exclusive videos of cattle mutilation scenes from the San Luis Valley in southern Colorado. It's the greatest unsolved crime spree in history, says author Chris O'Brien, who recorded the videos. He wrote about his findings in his book, Stalking the Herd, Unraveling the Cattle Mutilation Mystery. The videos depicted the grisly nature of more than a dozen cattle mutilations. Mutilations differ from typical livestock deaths because the carcasses are found with body parts removed in an unusual fashion. The never-seen-before footage is featured in the latest episode of Tucker Carlson Originals, which is available now on Fox Nation. The San Luis cases are just a handful of more than 10,000 mutilations that have stumped ranchers and investigators across the United States for decades. So let's just stop right there. That's the more than 10,000 mutilations that we know about, and this doesn't include animals in the wilds. There could be there's other animals apparently that are sometimes found that are mutilated in the same fashion that these the cattle are. So deer, and other animals in that are found like this. Okay, continuing. Just this month, ranchers in Delta Junction, Alaska, reportedly found the remains of a cow that was missing its udder, eyes, and reproductive organs. Okay, right there. Let's stop there for a second. That's classic. The blood's all gone. The blood's drained out somehow. There's no signs of blood anywhere. A lot of times on these carcasses, some of the bones are broke, right? Which indicates that these things were dropped from a height. I mean, we've talked about this a number of times on the podcast. I mean, apparently with these and there's been people that witnessed these things. Some people saw the UFOs, around the area when these things happen. Sometimes it happens in broad daylight. There's been cases where a rancher sees a cow and it's perfectly healthy, and a half hour later he goes back to where the cow was and the cow's gone, and then he finds them 50 feet away and it's drained of blood, and it's all cut up like with laser precision cuts, and there's things are missing. Its reproductive organs are missing. Its udder, its eyes. I mean, there's part of its jaw. I mean, things are cut out with lasers. I mean, scientific experts have looked at this for years, and they know there's some whoever's doing this knows what they're doing, and it's not predators. All right, continuing. In 2019, cowboys at the Sylvius Valley Ranch in eastern Oregon found 5 bulls mutilated in a remote stretch of forest. There was no forensic evidence of any kind left at the scene, according to Colby Marshall, vice president of the ranch at the time of the mutilations. Marshall says the bulls were missing their blood and reproductive organs when they were found. Each one of those bulls would have produced 20 calves a year for probably the next 5 or 6 years. Their overall production value was in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, he said. Well, the ranch offered a $25,000 reward for information that would lead to an arrest. They got no credible leads. Of course they got no credible leads. How are you going to get any credible? I mean, you're going to get incredible leads. This is about the best you're going to get. The best you're going to get. I'm going to tell you something. There's no vampires doing this, right? It's not Dracula, okay? Like I said, maybe one case in 1,000, maybe it's some crazy maniac or maniacs part of a cult or something that would do something crazy like this, but nobody's ever been arrested for this. Why? It's obvious, because you can't. How are you going to do? You're going to arrest some aliens that do this and be, in a way that you're never going to catch them or find them or even see them doing it. This is ridiculous to even think about. Yeah, $25,000 reward. That's never going to be paid out because you're never going to catch anybody. That's just talk. I mean, it's unfortunate, but that's what's going on here. These things are killing these cows for whatever purpose, for feeding. A lot of people think it's for feeding on them, right? I've been talking about that lately. I mean, these things are like insects, right? According to all abduction reports, I mean, there's the little grays come in, take the abductee. These taller grays operated on the abductee, and standing back in the shadows are these praying mantis type looking things, right? Apparently, and they feed on blood, right? Insects, some of them. So why are they doing this, right? It's either for that, or maybe they use some of the blood for their alien abduction hybridization program that's been apparently ongoing for multiple decades now. But I would say number one is probably for feeding. They probably use the blood for feeding. Okay, that's continuing. Marshall continued with his commentary. He says, I would have never thought this would be possible, that you could basically kill 5 bulls without any evidence. Well, yeah, it's possible when you're talking about extraterrestrials from outer space, right? Because it's happening. It's been happening for a long time, and there's no answer except one. There's only one answer. And, not only that, and I just talked about this recently. There was a case where, some ranchers stayed out all night and they saw the UFO coming. They saw the lights. They heard a cow, screaming, and then the screaming was cut off, like suddenly. And then the next day they went out and they found that cow was drained of blood and all cut up, with the precision laser cuts. There's nothing we could do about this. This cattle mutilation thing is the most bold, most brash thing that probably the second most bold, most brash thing that these aliens do. I would probably say the alien abduction thing is number one, but they keep that pretty secret. This thing, they don't care. They're just they're leaving their evidence behind. They don't care. They don't care what we think, As far as they're concerned, they don't care how long we stand around scratching our heads wondering. There's no point in wondering here. It's aliens, right? The end of case closed. All right, let's continue here. At least 8 other cattle were reported mutilated in Oregon since the Silvius Valley Ranch cases. No culprit has been identified. The ones I've been involved in, we haven't solved any of them, says Sergeant Tom Rourke of the Lake County, Oregon Sheriff's Department. There was no evidence, no clues of a suspect. Ranchers have reported mutilations for centuries, but the cases peaked in the United States in the 1970s. Investigators kind of agree there were upwards of 1,000 cases in just Colorado alone, O'Brien says. As in this episode that's on this show that they're talking about on Fox, it said in 1975, the Denver Post reported that the United States Bureau of Land Management canceled aerial land surveys in the area because officials are simply afraid their helicopters might be shot down by ranchers and others frightened by cattle deaths. Now, that was back in 1975. I think a lot of ranchers today are pretty much, I think if you talk to a rancher, most of them, maybe not publicly, but privately, they'll tell you, there's nothing you can do about it. It's aliens. Maybe some of them are still out there with their shotguns thinking they're going to catch some, crazy cults or something running around. But I think most of them pretty much have, have are resigned to the fact that there's nothing that could be done about this. There's absolutely no, what could you do? What could anybody do? I mean, they haven't been able to do anything for decades now because you can't. It's impossible. I mean, you can stand out there with your shotgun till the cows come home. Pardon the pun. I didn't mean that pun, actually. But you can stand out there with your shotgun, and what are you going to do when these aliens show up? If you even see them, if you're even able to see them, because a lot of times you can't even see this happening. It's somehow they're able to do this, and nobody sees it. And then, but the result is the same. I mean, it's just not going to work. You can't prevent this. This is beyond anything our capacity to stop. Put it this way: if we could stop it, you think our government would have stepped forward already and said, "Yeah, we figured out some way to stop this." But apparently, they haven't. And I guess the bottom line is this: is that these things, I would say the number one reason is for food. They're using the blood for food. I've been talking to I bring this up, because I've mentioned it in recent podcasts, so I think it's only right that I bring it up again. But there's this former NASA electrical engineer, not just for NASA, but for other defense contractors and other government agencies like DARPA, who's been in contact with me anonymously, and it was this person's position that these mutilations, and possibly this person actually takes it a step further and believes human mutilations, the purpose behind it is that they're harvesting blood because they need blood to survive. Now, I know there's people out there that have commented in the comment sections about this. They say, well, they could these aliens are that advanced, they could just come up with anything, they could reproduce this without having to actually kill the cows. Could they? Well, we don't. For one thing, we don't know that for a fact. But even if they could, right? Nothing is like the real thing. I mean, if you go to they have these new hamburgers. They're not really made from meat. If I had a choice, which one am I going to take? I'm going to take the one that's made with real beef, right? I'm not going to take the one that's plant-based or something, right? Most people, I believe, would be on my side of this, unless you're a vegetarian, of course. But I just don't think there's anything we can do about it. And I think that it's, they're using, I mean, it's been going on for so long now, it's become obvious. There are beings here among us, right? And they have their, they need to eat too. And that's what they're doing. They're just stealing the cow brazenly, brashly, boldly, however which way you want to put it. Okay, let's continue here with this article. It says, on 3 separate occasions, sitting United States senators, including Harrison Schmitt, an astronaut who walked on the moon, called on the FBI to investigate the mutilations. Either we've got a UFO situation or we've got a massive, massive conspiracy, which is enormously well-funded, he told a local paper at the time. Declassified FBI documents show that in one investigation, the Bureau referred the case to the United States Fish and Wildlife Service, which blamed small mammals such as foxes and opossums, but didn't explain how predators or scavengers were able to make precise incisions. Of course, they can't explain it. They can't. There's nothing they could do. I'm not going to read the rest of this because you see where it's going, but I will leave the link so you can check it out for yourself. But it's obviously painfully apparent that this is something that's been going on a long time. And, apparently some people are still scratching their heads. I'm assuming the ones who are scratching their heads are the ones who just can't accept the reality that there's an extraterrestrial presence here. I'm sure Mick West, he'll probably come up, maybe he'll put forth maybe some mad traveling puppeteer troupe, right? That sneaks around the country that lives off cattle blood. I don't know what he might come up with. But whatever's going on, right? There's nothing we could do to stop this, and it's just going to continue forever, I guess, until what's the main end? What's the end game for these beings here? Are they basically going to live in secret among us forever? Is that what their plan is? I mean, basically like little spies running around and stealing our cattle behind our backs and taking the blood out of them. And I mean, what's the end game here? I mean, at some point, are they getting fed up? Are they getting sick of doing this? I mean, when are they coming out in the open? I mean, I would imagine that they're probably getting tired of, living their lives like this. Where are they at? Where are they hiding? They're hiding here somewhere. Most obviously, the first number one place would be underneath our oceans. I mean, I mean, that's perfect for them. I mean, you can never really pinpoint a precise spot where they're hiding up in the atmosphere, and their giant motherships floating around, right? You know, on the moon, on the dark side of the moon, maybe. They're here, though. They're here, and they're stealing cattle, and that's the answer. Case solved. There's nothing you can do about it. Everybody might as well go home, because you're not going to pick that $25,000 and just forget about it. Take your reward sign down. What are you going to do? You know, maybe send me the $25,000. I just solved it for you. It's extraterrestrials. End of story.